My name is Paul Angelone. I'm a senior director with the Urban Land Institute, and I'm here with Glenda Hood. Hi, Glenda.
Hi, good morning, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing great. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm from Orlando, Florida. I spent 25 years in government at the local level and at the state level. I served as mayor of the city of Orlando for 12 years and then went on to be Secretary of State of Florida. And, my background is really in planning and economic development. Now, why do I say that? The reason I say that is because I learned right off the bat as mayor that really the most important job a mayor has is planning for their city, having a vision and planning, and making sure that the economy is strong. So through a lot of experience, I gained a lot of insight and expertise in those two areas. I do have a private business. I do community engagement and work on inclusion and strategic planning with communities as well as the private sector and nonprofit sector. So I stay pretty busy.
Well, good. It sounds like it. And about how many panels have you served on?
Well, I went back and checked, and I've actually, on full advisory services panels, I've served on 15 in the last dozen years, and I've had the opportunity to chair 10 of those.
Oh, excellent. And why do you actually serve on panels?
Yeah, that's a great question. And first of all, it's one of the favorite things I do. And the reason is because I know that I can bring certain expertise to the table in the governance area, in implementation of ideas and recommendations that we recommend to those sponsors or those communities in which we work, as well as share experiences that I've had or best practices that I've learned. But I do this because I love working with groups of professionals that ULI brings together for these advisory services panels. Very smart, very wise, and thoughtful people in the way they approach the challenge that's placed before us. And I think we all as a team love a challenge. And so to be able to work with the community or work with that sponsor and help them address that challenge really through different lenses or thinking differently is important. We also learn from one another because we do bring different skill sets to the table. So we're always learning and quizzing one another and trying to broaden our areas of expertise as well and our knowledge. And then I think serving on a panel, just to know that you're helping a community be better, to gain insight in different ways, learn from others, and help them move their community forward is important.
And of those 15 panels, do you have a favorite or favorite panels that you've been on?
We did a panel for Research Triangle Park in the Raleigh-Durham area. And they were at a point where they were celebrating 50 years of being in place. And as we all know, RTP was the first research park really in the world. Now there are many different models of research parks. And RTP realized that they needed to really reinvent themselves, so to speak. And so what our panel did was we helped them realize that they needed to have more retail, more commercial activity, more places for the people that worked within the park to communicate, really create a village center. We needed to help them understand that those three institutions, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and Duke and NC State that had started RTP really needed to re-engage and share some of the expertise that they were doing within other research areas that they were developing within that region as well. So working on that was very different to really help them reinvent. And I actually went back to see what has progressed since we did our panel. And indeed, now there is a village center with kind of neighborhood retail types of activity, and restaurants and places where people can congregate. And there's more partnerships that have been established with beyond even the colleges in the area, with K through 12 institutions. And they've been able to attract more and more business onto the park land as well as kind of tying things together. So kind of an internal transportation system was something that we recommended to them as well, besides just the roadways. So that was a favorite. Another one was Niagara Falls, New York. And I have to tell you, when our panel got there and we did our site visit, we kind of shook our head and thought, there's nothing that can be done here. It was pretty grim. And we were supposed to look at not only how the former, what it's called, Rainbow Center Mall site could be redeveloped, which is kind of a concrete monolith in the center of the city, but also how the downtown could be enlivened again, because it was pretty dead. And the Niagara Falls US side is really the beautiful side of the falls. It's the natural side, where when you cross the boundary over into Canada, it's a little glitzy and a little different. So our focus was, number one, make sure that the state makes the park on the Niagara Falls US side someplace where people want to go. It needed a lot of upgrades. And it was the first state park in the United States, we learned. And so it has historic significance in many ways. And then how you tie that to the downtown area, and then with the mall that needed to be redeveloped, the community college already was moving forward with putting a culinary institute in there. So we thought that recommendations around food and wine, which is important to upstate New York, should be part of that plan. Again, I went back and checked on the progress with Niagara Falls, and actually they've attracted a lot more hotels on the US side. There's more retail in the downtown area. Unfortunately, some of the plans for the old Rainbow Center Mall have fallen through, and they haven't been able to create what they would like to there. But I know that that's still a vision for downtown Niagara Falls. And then the fourth one was with the University of Denver. And our challenge here and charge was to see how the university, which is kind of typical of universities to be internally focused, how could they be more externally focused and kind of weave themselves into the fabric of the surrounding neighborhoods, as well as the transportation station for light rail that was at the north side of their campus. And then how could they capitalize on the assets they had and make them more available to the community and really become more of a piece of the community instead of just something sitting within a community. Went back and checked on their progress, and 2 years after we made our recommendations, they actually put together their framework plan for the University of Denver, and they are opening up their campus more to the surrounding neighborhood. They've seen more retail around the edges. Their plans are to put a hotel in place on the property, which will attract people. They have reconfigured a lot of their transportation needs throughout the campus, as well as right through the middle of the campus where there's a major artery. So they really followed through on many of our recommendations.
Well, that's great to hear, and thanks for sharing about those various projects. Do you have any final thoughts about the program or anything that you've learned along the way?
Yeah, I think it's important that people understand how to implement the plans, the recommendations we put in place. And, you know, I always say, think differently, be bold, make sure you see that the community has the will to move forward, and know what you really want to change in your community. Kind of diagnose what your challenge is, see if it's relevant, who really has a stake in it, who should lead it, and put in place a realistic time frame. And then importantly, and we always find this as a challenge in every community, is that often the community's not engaged to the point that they should be. And you should be inclusive of all publics within your community, because there's a lot of good ideas out there and a lot of good suggestions. And if you put that into the action plan that you're developing, and then you communicate all the time, and then you celebrate even the smallest successes. And that really makes sure that you have buy-in and that you have complete ownership. So you know, understanding the relationship of the issue to the community is so key. And I think most importantly, Paul, is that when we leave as a panel, we make recommendations, but we're not there to follow through, and we're not the ones that are going to be responsible for implementing. But when we publish this booklet for them, they can hold this up and they can talk about that panel of experts that came in and looked at their community differently, and really saw it in a different light than perhaps those who are so close to the issue were. And it provides cover for them if there's something politically charged or something really controversial as well. But most importantly, it's the foundation upon which they can put plans in place for the future. Just like I shared with you where some of these panels I've served on, I've seen places do that. So that's important, and it's just always fun to work on these panels. I learn a lot, as I said. I hope I contribute a lot, but I think for the community's sake, it's probably one of the best programs that I've ever been involved with.
Well, thank you so much, Glenda, and it's always fun to work with you. So thank you very much, and thanks for talking with us today.
Certainly.